Hare Krishna everyone again, unless you're tuning in for the first time with this video today, or any day, because what we're discussing is completely transcendental. It doesn't matter what circumstance you're in, who you are, what day, you'll benefit, I'll benefit as well. It nourishes the heart and soul, who we really are. Soul, sorry if I didn't say that clearly, is what I meant to say, sorry. But I'll be trying something new. Right now I'll be giving a little bit of a class and talk just on the yoga and meditation wisdom of ancient India, sorry I meant to say, which I keep mentioning in my other videos, but I don't usually give specific quotes or read from these ancient yoga meditation texts. This will be a chance and an opportunity, sorry I meant to say, for me to do so, and for those who are tuning in and listening in to listen. And these are not my words, these are words from great souls, basically, who have realized this knowledge. They're living the knowledge, which we hardly see today, as far as I can see, and am aware and have heard of, basically. So this first, basically I try my best to read these yoga meditation texts of ancient India and this ancient wisdom of ancient India and knowledge, this ancient knowledge of ancient India, all the same, every day. And I take screenshots of things that pop out to me. So these are just a few screenshots of things that popped out to me, and I was like, oh, it's all but because of my dullness, sometimes it only pops out to me from time to time when I'm reading. And maybe we can discuss a little bit and think about these quotes. So as far as I'm aware, this is referring to people in general. So it says, they do not realize that this brief life is but a moment of our great journey towards self-realization. Realizing that you are the soul is what it's saying. The whole system of education is geared to sense gratification, and if a learned man thinks it over, he sees that the children of this age are being intentionally sent to the slaughterhouses of so-called education. Learned men, therefore, must be cautious of this age. It's describing this age, Kali Yuga. I might pop in from time to time just to explain as well. Sorry. Kali means quarrel, from what I've read and have heard from great souls through literature and also through spoken word. And Yuga means age, so the age of quarrel we're currently in, according to this knowledge of ancient India. And if they at all want to cross over the dangerous ocean of Kali, quarrel, they must follow the footsteps of these great souls, basically, who know and have realized this knowledge which can satisfy the heart and soul. So that's the first quote. So this quote is really stressing just the importance of coming into consciousness of your real self, being aware, in other words, of who you really are, which is soul beyond body and mind. And some parts I paraphrased, just because the vocabulary or terminology or phrases may not be so understandable depending on who you are, and how familiar is what I meant to say you are with this knowledge. And the next quote, it says, and so this age is very difficult for those who want to utilize this life for self-realization. The people are so busy with sense gratification. Basically, sense gratification it's referring to material sense gratification as far as I'm aware, which is basically, what can I exploit, basically, for my temporary pleasure of my material senses, my ear, my mouth, my eyes, and this is a very, animalistic way to live, basically, but we're all in it, so it's nothing to beat ourselves over, we simply take to this process, especially this chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and we lose our taste for gratifying our material senses in almost all the ways in which we're used to. I say almost because from what I can remember and have read and have heard from these ancient yoga and meditation texts of ancient India is that sense gratification, material sense gratification is necessary in order to keep the body and soul together, i.e., we still need to eat and sleep, at least on our level, as beginners. We need to have a house, if we have facility to do that. Like, we need to keep ourselves in good shape, basically. It helps in order to, practice soul realization of our whole lifetime. So still execute the material side of things, your duties, keeping yourself warm, all of these things. Whatever you have the energy and capacity and time and facility to do, of course. But this is important. That is material sense gratification. You're gratifying your material senses. But, the yoga meditation texts of ancient India explain, like, to a point. Everything more than that is just a waste of the human form of life, basically, and the energy that we've been given by a higher energy, basically. From what I can remember and have read and have heard from these great souls and this great ancient knowledge of ancient India and wisdom of ancient wisdom of ancient India, sorry, I meant to say. So it says, out of madness, they frankly say that there is no need for self-realization. It's speaking about people in general, as far as I can see and remember, because they do not realize that this brief life is but a moment of our great journey towards self-soul realization, in brackets. The whole system of education, so I've already said that part, and then we'll go to the next quote. So again, it's talking about this age of Kali, this age of quarrel, Kali meaning quarrel. And it's basically saying that the age of Kali is very dangerous for the human being. Human life is simply meant for self, soul, in brackets, realization. But due to this dangerous age, people have completely forgotten the aim of life. So I even heard from a lecture given by, I think, from memory, I hate to misquote and misremember, but I think it was by this great saint and soul, His Holiness Devamrita Swami Maharaja. He was explaining that we are in an atmosphere of forgetfulness. So even those who are participating in this process of realizing that you are a soul beyond body and mind, some people, forget even the importance of it, and either lose sight, lose focus, and then just crawl back into animal life, basically, of simply eating, sleeping, having sexual intercourse for temporary pleasure and defending, and then they call that life, and a lot of us call that life. And some of us may call that even a life well lived, but we're just, by just doing that, we're simply sapping the life right out of our bodies, basically, and just becoming more and more numb and more unconscious to who we really are, which is soul, beyond body and mind. And this might be the last quote, and I'm pretty sure all of these quotes are from this beautiful book called the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is an ancient yoga meditation text from ancient India. And the last quote, this one I'm pretty sure is from this book called Srimad Bhagavad Gita, as it is. It's really cool how the last part of the title is as it is, because it's basically, as far as I'm aware, it's meaning like there's no interpretation here for someone's ego or their temporary pleasure. It's as it is, word for word. No, sorry, the light may do that from time to time. No like ego trips or manipulating sentences or words just to suit a particular time and place. There's no, as far as I'm aware and have seen, as I think a lot of us have seen, there's no benefit that comes from that, just a lot of fanaticism and hypocrisy and sentimentalism. There's two ends of the spectrum, like, spiritual, or spiritual means like never wearing socks and just, it's just crap, basically, so to speak. Sorry about my language there. So this is a very nice quote, in my opinion, from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is. It says, it's talking, as far as I'm aware and can see from this quote in particular, it's talking about the process of self-realization, realizing that you are soul beyond the body and mind, which are simply vehicles according to these ancient yoga and meditation texts of ancient India. It's saying that a sincere person who follows this method is far better situated than the false pretender who adopts show bottle spiritualism to cheat the innocent public. A sincere sweeper in the street is far better than a charlatan meditator who meditates only for the sake of making a living. So this, as far as I'm aware, it reaffirms that you really don't need to change anything about your life other than simply add in the chanting of this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, this great mantra. Maha means great. For those of you who know of Mahatma Gandhi, Maha's in his name. So Maha meaning this great mantra. Why is it described as the great mantra? It's described as the medicine, so to speak, for realizing who you really are. We have medicines for so many other things, and a lot of them actually don't work very well. Well, I can assure you this one works for everyone. It doesn't matter who you are, what your gender is, your sexuality, your whatever other identification you identify as in that realm of gender and sexuality, your job, your age, all these designations and or statuses. I apologize if I get any of these designations or terminologies or language or vocabulary wrong. I don't mean to be miscommunicating in that way, but it really doesn't matter who you are, what your situation is. You start by chanting this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and then your life completely changes. Keep your job, keep your house. As far as I'm aware, this is what it's saying. Be sincere, don't be fake. Don't think, I have to renounce everything, which means to give up, as far as I'm aware, and just run off to the hills and chant this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, kind of thing. That's, as far as I'm aware, what it's describing as the charlatan meditator who just gives everything up and becomes irresponsible, actually. So it's about keeping your responsibilities, because this process of chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, it's actually all about taking responsibility, so to keep everything the way it is, and it's all about the change of consciousness. So your consciousness changes, and that's likened to the diamond within the ring, like the silver or the golden setting, or whatever other setting. That is our life as it is. And then you find your life changes anyway, perhaps on the material level too. But this is ultimately realizing who you are. We've spent so long not realizing, who we are, and just constantly identifying with this ever-changing, temporary body and mind. And someone might think, is this process of chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, this process of self, soul, in brackets, realization, this process of self, soul realization, is this about just becoming at some point dissatisfied with life as it is, and so you just escape into this process of chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra? That would be the case if it didn't work. You know, so you meet these people who have been doing this process for a whole lifetime almost, you know, if not a little less or a little more, so to speak. And you find that they're actually more engaged in the world, but their consciousness has changed. And how do you know that their consciousness has changed? It immediately comes out in the way they speak, they act, they think, and this cannot be faked because it's a moment to moment, every moment thing as far as I'm aware. I haven't lived obviously with these great souls. For example, I've mentioned him many times, His Holiness Devamrita Swami, but when you meet them and you're in the presence, even though just their presence is like no other person's presence in my experience, it just shakes you to your core, basically. And that can seem a little scary, but, you know, it's something we must grab onto and try and just absorb ourselves in. And the absorption just goes deeper and deeper and deeper in my experience, and also from what I've read and from what I've heard from these great souls and these ancient yoga and meditation texts of ancient India. So I invite everyone to, you know, maybe meditate on these quotes from these beautiful books, Srimad Bhagavatam, which is divided into 12 different volumes, and this, what's described as the ABCs of yoga wisdom, or yoga meditation, or sorry, I meant to say ancient yoga meditation wisdoms from ancient India. So yeah, I invite you to meditate on these quotes, meditate on this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And if this is the first video that you're watching, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is simply comprised of 3 names, Hare Krishna and Rama. I'll say that one more time, Hare Krishna and Rama. And then those 3 names are comprised into a 16-worded mantra. Mantra means to free the mind. Man means mind, and tra means to free. And these words are of the Sanskrit language. And as far as I've heard, the Sanskrit language is the mother of all other languages. So this is the source, this is where everything emanates and comes from. And the deeper you go, the more depths there are. And that's another great quote from, again, His Holiness, this great saint and soul, His Holiness Devamrita Swami Maharaja. And I forgot to actually say the mantra, so it goes Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and I'll say it 2 more times. Maybe we can all say it together so we get the hang of it. It goes Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and maybe one more time. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and maybe a 4th time. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Yes. And it can be repeated as often as you like, or as little as you like, even just one mantra. But it's an any time, all the time, anywhere process, without any conditions. You know, this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra can be thought, sung, talked, screamed, mouthed, shouted, as far as I'm aware, and as far as I practice. You know, and another little cool activity and experiment is to even just, as you're dozing off to sleep, just chant, you know, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra until you're completely unconscious. We do so many other things before we go to bed that simply degrade the consciousness in a lot of our experiences. I'm not saying you specifically, but, you know, a lot of us do. So we can just try it and see the results. And yeah, the more you do it, the more pleasure you get out of it. The pleasure increases, whereas we can see everything else, the pleasure just, whatever it is, it starts with some amount of temporary, flickering, seems to be satisfying but not satisfying pleasure, and then that not so satisfying but seems to be satisfying pleasure just disintegrates over time. You know, the body disintegrates, the mind disintegrates, so what are we doing? we should connect. I invite everyone to connect with their real self, so meet your real self, so to speak. Hare Krishna.